Welcome to this post-Thanksgiving Business Day. We are now at issues and updates for the Board of County Commissioners. Gary Schmidt, you are up on this November 29th, 2022.
Thank you, Chair Smith. All commissioners are present. Commissioners Schrader and Fisher are on their way in the room. We're going to start your meeting as the Board of County Commissioners. We have a presentation on the TriMet Forward Together proposal, which you had requested. Everett Wild from County Administration will kick it off, and we have a guest from TriMet, Grant O'Connell. Everett, go ahead.
Good morning, Everett Wild, Policy Advisor in County Administration. Gary took most of my introduction, so TriMet has prepared a package of service changes that they are calling Forward Together. The county provided a letter of comment on October 25th. One of the requests in that letter was to have a presentation from TriMet staff to get some more information, and that's what we will have today. So to my right is Grant O'Connell, Senior Planner with TriMet, who will give the presentation. And there's a slide deck as well. Thank you, Tony.
Welcome to Clackamas County. Thank you for coming. Please introduce yourself and state your position.
Will do. Thank you, Chair Smith. My name is Grant O'Connell. I'm a Senior Planner at TriMet in the Planning and Policy Division. I'm going to be very brief and try to be lightning fast. I know you have a packed agenda, and many of you have heard this before, so I want to leave time for dialogue. But at the same time, please feel free to interrupt me and interject. Forward Together. Next slide, please. We recognize that the pandemic has shifted the way people travel, frankly. That's, the headline here. We are trying to understand and respond to this moment in time. We've seen changes in demand, goals and expectations from the community, and resources available to operate services. So we want to respond to all of those things. Next slide, please. The changes in demand, peak commute-oriented ridership, is particularly in the downtown Portland-oriented direction, driven by more affluent workers, has declined and stayed lower. Ridership in other places has fallen less and recovered faster. Commercial and educational destinations, retail, industrial, service center work, and areas high on TriMet's equity index have all either fallen less or recovered faster through the pandemic. Those are the changes in demands we've seen. Changes in goals. We checked in with the community last spring, fielded a survey through many different channels, and the most popular responses were to focus on ridership, make sure that the taxpayer dollar is going to good use, that where service is being put out, it's being used well. Reduce congestion was a goal of the community. And for me, those are two in the same thing, because wherever we're seeing good ridership, we know we're getting people on the bus. We should also then be, in turn, reducing congestion. But then the third goal the community stated for us was to improve services that improve the outcomes for persons experiencing lower incomes and other things that we would generally put under the umbrella of equity: persons with disabilities, persons with of minority. So that's the changes in goals and demands that we've seen. Next slide, please. At the outset of the pandemic, a lot of people forecasted a recession. Certainly did happen, but it was brief, and the economy came roaring back. There was that recession, and also ridership certainly declined due to the lockdowns. So we reduced service. We're currently operating service at about 78% of what service was before the pandemic, and we want to get back there. But with that roaring back economy and also the CARES and CRRSA funding that buoyed us through this time, because of that roaring economy and those stimulus dollars, we do have the ability to restore back to pre-pandemic levels of service and even grow 10% above that. But our ability to do so will be gated by the labor shortage. As many industries across the region are experiencing a labor shortage, so are we. But however, so this is our plan that should that labor shortage start to abate, which it is, thankfully, we wanted to plan where that growth was. Should we simply snap back to what once was, or do we need to grow back to a new normal responding to this moment in time? So that is this project. Next slide, please. What did we put in the service concept? Based on that focus on ridership, where we see good return on investment for service is through the frequent service lines. So where we currently operate 14 frequent service lines, we put in the concept to raise that by 50%. So frequent service lines are where a bus, we give it a guarantee of about if that bus is designated a frequent service line, it should come every 15 minutes or better throughout most of the day. So we operate 14 of such lines. We are proposing to add 7 more through this project. Extending the grid to new areas. Wherever 2 roadways operate in a perpendicular fashion, you create the opportunity to connect any 2 points of the region with one single transfer. So wherever that's possible, we look to expand that. Now, even below that 15-minute guarantee, other services that don't quite rise to that level of need, we wanted to bring those up to at least a 30-minute standard on weekdays and on the weekends. Because the essential and in-person worker that has really come to resemble our core demographic of ridership really relies on service. They don't work 9 to 5, so we need to make sure those services are running all days of the week. And then looking to expand new lines for areas that are far from transit today. Now, we took from those goals of focusing on ridership and focusing on equity. Ridership tells you to operate service where you have dense linear walkable development, such as Malala out here, where the 33 runs. Equity tells you even if it's not dense linear walkable development, go there anyway because the community needs it for equity reasons. But we took from those 2 goals, ridership and equity then. So if an area is low density, lower density development, higher income, we did explore with the service concept, if we're focusing on ridership and equity, do those areas then maybe need less service? And so in the service concept, we did explore the elimination in some areas that happen to meet that criteria. Now, since then, we did go out to the public, and the public told us we may have gone a little far on that, so we are dialing that back a bit. We're working on a revision that will restore and replace some services in those areas. So, next slide, please. In summary, what was in the service concept, just some high-level takeaways, would put 50% more people in jobs near frequent service. That's huge. 100,000 more people near service running on the weekends and service to new areas in all 3 counties. Next slide, please. This is all, housed at TriMet.org forward. You can see all this information and much more there. Next slide, please. Here's where I really want to dialogue with you all about. Your letter, the spirit and intent that we took from your letter is that this needs more time and study. And the message here is we agree. We're not asking our board to adopt the service concept as set in stone in December. This will be an iterative process. This will provide us with a guide for how we might grow back and restore service as the labor shortage abates. And each year, we will put that into our annual service plan, take it back out to the public, to you all, and to others, and see if it still makes sense, study it further, and then ask the board to adopt each change each year throughout the process. So, quick, I basically, covered everything said here, but we were really pleased with the response that we saw in October. Over 4,600 responses to a survey, 500 attendees to 8 open houses throughout the region. And we're responding as I measured. Right now, we're working on a revision to the service concept, and that'll be made available at TriMet's December 14th board meeting. And then each year, we'll come back to that service concept as a guide and meet again with you all, study it further engagement, public hearings, open houses, the like, before any changes are actually implemented. So that really concludes what I had prepared for you today, but I know there may be questions, so I wanted to leave time for that and be brief.
Tony, please roll up For some reason, the smell I'm allergic to, and I start coughing and sneezing, and that's why I'm asking him to roll it up. So if I'm gurgly, that's why. Thank you, Grant, for coming forward. I just have a couple questions, and maybe my board does too. You said you're going to try to run buses every 15 minutes on high-volume areas. Is that correct?
So we have a network of frequent service lines. Those lines operate every 15 minutes or better. There's 14 such lines
Yes.
currently throughout the region, and we're looking to upgrade about 7 more of them
Yes.
to that standard.
Yes, I understand that. My notes reflect that. I probably asked the question not quite accurately. So, on those high-frequency lines, how many hours a day are you going to run every 15 minutes? Because you say people work at different times.
I'd have to look up the exact standard. I believe it's, we provide that guarantee from about 6 a.m. until 7 p.m. I'm not certain of those times, but that's approximate. I could look that up briefly if that's needed.
And then after 7 p.m. and between the off time, so to speak, how often will bus service be? How frequent?
Usually, starting at 5 a.m., it's about every 30 minutes. Outside of those hours, we try to dial it to match demand. So usually about every 30 minutes, some 5 to 6 about every 30 minutes, and then 7 to usually about midnight, about every 30
And
minutes,
those
depending on
schedules will
demand.
be set once this plan is implemented.
Well, each year, we will put these ideas into our annual service plan. We adopt it as part of our budget based on what our budget and labor allows us to do, and that's when those specifics will be known.
Well, I just want to have certainty for the ridership. You pick up a schedule, and I can count on bus 32 being at this location at this time, even in off-peak hours. That's what, if any transportation can be on time, it's a bus. Our school system has showed that they pick up kids at certain times, so they're at school before school starts, so they're in their seats at a certain time. And TriMet, I think, is striving to do that. So it's very important. And I do appreciate that you have looked at some areas that need ridership more than others. My question is, how much ridership are you removing from Clackamas County, certainly in light of the tolling situation, where people will be diverted onto other streets, and quite possibly ridership could increase? I don't know if it will or not once tolling comes. So what's your answer to that?
Service levels in Clackamas County are growing under this plan. This is a 38% growth plan across the region overall. In Clackamas County, we are in conversations with the state to talk about additional funding to operate services that would mitigate the effects of tolling. So depending upon the outcome of that, we see Clackamas County service growing by about anywhere from 38% to 50% over today's levels. Now, today's
That's
levels being
significant.
reduced.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's significant in that we are at 78% of pre-pandemic ridership.
Service levels. Ridership's actually hovering around 50 to 60% of pre-pandemic levels.
So you need to increase ridership as well.
Absolutely. And this plan is trying to focus service where we know we can get rides.
Okay. Other commissioners are in the queue. Thank you for that. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, so most of your presentation was a regional, your numbers and assumptions are net results that you anticipate. That's not Clackamas County specific, it's regional, correct?
It is regional, but we have done analysis specific in specific areas, and we see growth in Clackamas County as well.
Okay, so where lines are eliminated currently, the lift service would be limited or go away as well, because there's an obligation for lift service along current lines. If a line goes away, those people that are being served today that need lift service will no longer get lift service.
We have analyzed that. The boundary is 3/4 of a mile from any line on a map. And so the only place under the service concept that we do see potential loss of reduction in lift services along South Shore in Lake Oswego. All other areas would retain lift service.
So in the Portland area, the definition of walkable in length in, let's say, Portland, where it's flat, is about how far to service?
The industry standard says that folks are willing to walk about a 1/4 mile to fixed route service that's regular, and then a 1/2 mile to frequent service.
And how, do you guys have a different number for areas where we have topographical challenges like West Lynn, where a line's being eliminated, and Lake Oswego, where lines are being eliminated, where we know the topography is really challenging?
Well, we have the ability to map that using, our GIS team has taken great pains to catalog the majority of the sidewalk network throughout the region. And so we can actually measure the walk distance for most folks throughout the region. And it varies, obviously, because, your path may be circuitous.
Yeah, I'm really talking about how steep and how difficult it may be, especially for areas where, again, it's not as walkable, knowing you're going to go uphill or downhill, depending on which direction you're going, what time of day you're going. But I'm just wondering how walkable that really is. And so that these distances seem to change. So I think the impact, what I'm trying to really say is that it appears to me that the impacts on reductions in areas of a lot of steep inclines, topographical challenges, are more severe than they would be for a grid area.
What I would say, again, is
flat
this,
grid area.
I think the intent of what you're saying here, I can address a different way. This represents a 36 to 50% growth in service for Clackamas County. And if we've gotten the mark wrong about where that growth should occur, let's continue to dialogue. We are not asking the board to adopt this wholesale, and it will not become set in stone. We are going to continue to work with Clackamas County and jurisdictions throughout the region to study this and make sure that whatever decision is made at the time it's implemented is the right decision. So we're talking about growth here. Let's make sure we grow together in a way that we can all agree.
Yeah, well, in general, let's just go pre-pandemic. In general, my concern has been, as an advocate for more transit in Clackamas County, especially for those populations that need it, businesses that need it, so their employees can show up on time on Saturdays and Sundays where we've had no Saturday, Sunday service. The challenge has really been that the TriMet board or the TriMet director or the leadership have often said, well, Commissioner, we understand your need, but there's no resources, pre-pandemic, there's no resources to really grow transit in Clackamas County or in the area. We're maxed out. And so I've been looking for, a strand of hope that we could actually truly shrink the transit deserts, the areas in which we have no service anywhere close to walking distance, right? And it doesn't seem, from looking at the maps anyhow, before and after, that necessarily that will really be the net result. And as far as the 205 question, we're hoping to grow a system around the 205 corridor, not just really a line, right? There needs to be a system wrapped around it in a topographically challenged area as well.
Well, that's where we also have the Regional Coordination Program through House Bill 2017. Serving some of those areas might be a good fit for that service, and we continue to work with Clackamas County to study that as well. I think it's important to remember that service doesn't exist not only in geography as represented by lines on a map, but in time, how many times it comes throughout the day. And so by looking at a map, you don't get that sense of how often a bus is running. And so this is a growth concept, growing by 36 to 50% in Clackamas County. And so what you're seeing is that service that lines on the map, they're becoming more frequent. And so if that's not the direction Clackamas County wants to go, if you'd rather it be spread out and more geography coverage, we can talk about that too. That's kind of what you're asking us, in a sense, is what I'm taking from your comment.
Yeah, and we've been trying to have that discussion for a number of years, whether it's the 2017 STIF committee or whether it's other venues, trying to have that really discussion. Is it coverage or is it frequency, right?
Right.
And, it's a tough discussion. I understand that. But the 205 corridor in particular is one where, I think those people, if they are going to be set up in an issue where they don't have an option, or they don't have viable options or a system wrapped around that, they're just not going to have options, and I don't know how we're going to address that.
We are in our revision looking at having the route deviate off of I-205 in West Lynn in some fashion to make sure that we're still serving West Lynn. So you'll see that in the revision. We're studying that a bit more. But I think we got that a little wrong by just staying on the freeway. So.
I share my concerns and also share the word the chair used earlier about uncertainty. You know, when we make changes, I was a business operator. When I added another location and I maybe moved a particular part of my operation to that other location, I lost customers. I was shocked because as easy as we made it to be maybe where we thought people would not have a problem with it, we still lost customers. So I'm always concerned about that. And I know we experienced that very same thing when the Orange Line opened. The bus lines changed. People that had a route used the bus because of the changes in where the route, the alignment changed. We're no longer could get back and forth to work using transit. And some areas that didn't have service got service where they didn't have it before. So it's hard to say how that worked out, but we certainly hear the complaints.
Of course. Yeah, understood. We did as well.
Any questions or comments regarding this presentation from TriMet and their senior planner, Grant O'Connell? Mark?
Mr. O'Connell, thank you for coming to Clackamas County today. Trust you got here okay with the snow coming down and the ice.
Just fine, thank you.
Clackamas County is very much different from most of your TriMet service area in that I would say maybe 70% of our territory is very low density or no density. So the lower the density, the more costly it is to push out bus service. When you talk about increasing service to the county by some maybe 50%, in your economics, at what point of ridership, low ridership, do you just say, we can't go there, we just can't afford to do it? Because a lot of the areas that Commissioner Savas is speaking about need, where we do have some people, maybe people, when you talk about equity, okay, that could use it, those areas still have a potentially very low ridership. So what I want to know, Mr. O'Connell, is in your planning for these low-density areas, at what point do you just say, we can't go past this level of ridership? I mean, what can we really, in this county, expect to look at for increased bus service?
We generally strive to see 15 boarding rides per hour on a vehicle, but that is not a strict standard. And the goals of this project, as stated, were ridership, but then also equity as followed. And so equity tells us, even if it doesn't meet the ridership standards, go there anyway because it's needed by the community. And so our demographic information was held as a background as we were doing this work, to make sure that we took pains to go there anyway if ridership didn't show to be of great potential in those areas. So we, if there's an area we've missed, let us know. We're happy to take a look at it.
Okay, one more comment. When we look at the Abernathy Bridge, I-205, and the threat of tolling, there's been some dialogue with TriMet about how to use bus service to mitigate diversion. But very few people I've talked to in the county who have this concern about what's going to happen if tolling is implemented. They don't understand how, if they need to get from point A to point B and they're in their car or truck or their service vehicle, how TriMet could possibly mitigate the diversion problem because of the nature of the Abernathy Bridge being pretty much the only way across the river for quite a distance on either side. So again, let me paraphrase what I'm saying here. When we discuss with TriMet your ability to mitigate diversion, there's not been any real details provided that would make us feel like that diversion could be mitigated. That plays into our concern about tolling. I mean, if TriMet were to say, we could help you with this diversion problem, then that might have some small effect on our argument against tolling.
I regret I'm still not fully sure I'm understanding the question. However, I understand you want more specifics about what we can do to help mitigate the impacts of tolling. And what I would say is, in the service concept, you will find that we are introducing a new line between Tualatin and Oregon City, really an extension of the Line 76, which operates between Beaverton. So there could be available for folks a one-seat ride between Beaverton and Oregon City on Line 76 via I-205 over the Abernathy Bridge. So we are proposing that as a baseline. We think, though, it probably needs to run more frequently in order to be a more viable option for folks, and that's where we're in conversations with the state about additional funding that might help upgrade that frequency. But that, as a baseline, is the first step. We're also looking at upgrading the Line 35, which operates across the bridge but goes into downtown Portland, and then the 79 operating between Oregon City and Clackamas Town Center to make sure that that's operating at a good standard as well. So that is what's in the service concept specifically to help mitigate the impacts of tolling, with the caveat that we'd like to see them operate more frequently if the state can help us do that.
Okay, Mr. O'Connell, I appreciate it. I appreciate the information.
Sure.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Smith. I'm loving this color-coded map that was in our materials, but I don't know if it was shown
It was, but he went through it kind of fast.
for everyone. So I'm just trying to figure out where everything is and how it all goes. But my question, I'm looking at where I believe our courthouse is going to be, which will be serviced by Line 31 and 33. But I'm interested in, to get to the courthouse, it's not going to be so easy under this plan unless you're on one of those lines. You'll have to do a transfer somewhere. I'm just curious what the thinking was behind the service to this area right here where the new courthouse is going to be.
Let me just pull it up so I make sure that I speak.
You do come down Warner Mill and on Beaver Creek Road. I think, according to the map, but I'm not sure.
So currently, the 33 comes through the campus, and then the 99 stays out on Malala, and then the 32 currently also stays out on Malala. So we are actually then adding another route that would come through this area. So there'd be coming through Red Soils would see two bus lines operating through Kane Road rather than just the one that we have currently. So we are increasing service through Red Soils.
Yeah, so I see 31 and 33, and I see that 33 goes down, McLaughlin. So McLaughlin, if you're on McLaughlin and you get on, then you get probably a straight shot to, and then 31, I don't know where that goes, or if that's just added from the Oregon City Transit Center.
It's a reconfiguration of the prior lines 32 and 79. So it would, in the concept then, coming through Red Soils would be available from kind of the Beaver Creek area of Oregon City, and then Gladstone, Johnson City up to Clackamas Town Center. So that would be a direct link from Clackamas Town Center through Red Soils as well.
Okay, that's harder to see. But for all the other areas of Clackamas County, there would not be a direct way to get to the courthouse, only those two routes. Has there been any thought about expanding connections or service?
We are looking at improving the Oregon City Transit Center to make sure that transfers are easier, but we could look at running more services up here as well. It hasn't been specifically asked for, but, because this is already an increase in that, the running directly through S oils, but we could take a look at that as well.
Well, I'm just thinking people in Wilsonville, or people, I mean, how are people going to use public transit to get to the courthouse? Or to services? And there's a lot of services up here on this area.
Absolutely, and that's where we did add another route through here. But you're right in the sense that if you're not directly on those routes, there would be a transfer required. I think a transfer is, each route that we pull up here would be at an additional cost that might be invested elsewhere in Clackamas County. So we want to be judicious about that, right? We can certainly look at it. But just beware of the trade-off that what that may mean, because each line, each additional route mile is a cost. And so that may mean that we're not able to do something elsewhere. But it's certainly worth looking at.
Thank you. Two quick questions, and then I have another commissioner in the queue. When do you plan on implementing this plan?
So as the labor shortage and our finances continue to allow, over the next, we think it'll probably take about 3 to 6 years. We'll be back out to the public in January with what of this we think we can do the next fiscal year, and we'll do the same each year until
It's fully implemented.
it's implemented.
And you said you were going to travel down I-205, correct, and across the Abernathy Bridge, correct?
Correct.
Tolling will be going on then. Is TriMet exempt from paying tolls?
I don't know the exact answer to that off the top of my head. I don't know.
And if not, would that tolling be passed on to the riders?
No. We're not going to increase fares specifically to mitigate for tolling. I think that's the wrong thing to do.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, just one comment. I want to make sure that TriMet is working hard to make connections with our smaller providers in Clackamas County. We have a lot of connections and opportunities, and I think there's just a lot that could be said to enhance service for the end user if we are working closely with SMART to Wilsonville, for example, all of our other providers that are going through the region. And so I'd like to really see a greater concerted effort to make those connections and try to make that their trip, or their ride as fluid as possible.
Absolutely. We offer to meet regularly with SMART, and they haven't always attended, but we continue to extend that invitation monthly through MPAC.
Any other questions for the presenter? I see none, and thank you for coming and presenting the plan. We understand it's going to take time to implement. It sounds like you're going to be quite fluid in listening to comment, especially from the governing jurisdictions, and we do appreciate that.
Absolutely. Happy to work with you all. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Grant. Gary, what's up next?
Thank you, Chair. You are still meeting as the Board of County Commissioners. We're going to discuss with you now the ratification of the 2021-2023 labor agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, or AFSCME, Transportation and Development, and AFSCME, Water Environment Services. We'll have a single discussion on both contracts, although you will have to meet as two separate boards when it comes time for the vote. I want to say that up front. So you're still meeting as the Board of Commissioners. We have as our main presenters Andrew Nares from County Counsel's Office and Eric Collier, who's a contractor with our Human Resources Department. We have several in the audience that can help as well. And online, we have Eric Serra, if there's any questions that he can answer. So please go ahead, Andrew and Adam.
Go ahead. Who wants to go first? And please introduce yourself.
I can start. I'm Adam Collier. I'm the city's outside labor negotiator for the 3 AFSCME contracts, and we're here to talk today about both the DTD and the West contracts. So as far as DTD goes, the parties met for 7 bargaining sessions and 2 mediation sessions. At the conclusion of the second mediation session on March 15th of this year, the parties reached an overall tentative agreement, and I'll just briefly review the substantive changes to the contract for DTD. There was some new language added pertaining to remote work due to building closures. The health insurance language essentially matches what the county's contracts are with the other bargaining units. Wages in year one, the employees would get a 1.8% adjustment, and in the second year of the contract, they would get a 4.5% adjustment, which was based on the consumer price index that the parties reached agreement on. And this would be a 2-year contract. For standby pay, the parties agreed to slight increases in standby pay for employees, both on weekends and weekdays. There's new language related to emergency shift pay to increase that by a small amount. There's new language applicable to equity, diversity, and inclusion language that both parties wanted. And as I mentioned, it would be a 2-year contract. So that's the DTD overall tentative agreement. And so we're here today. I guess I just want to explain that the overall tentative agreements do not become final until they're ratified by both sides. And so we're here today to strongly encourage the board to ratify both of these overall tentative agreements. So that was the DTD contract. Are there any questions about that, or would you like me to explain the WES?
Go ahead and explain the West contract. So we're discussing both the contracts at the same time, but we will have to recess as one governing board to another for a vote later on. So please offer up your discussions.
Okay, so similarly with WES, we had 10 bargaining sessions and 2 mediation sessions. At the second mediation session on March 16th of this year, the parties reached an overall tentative agreement. Again, the health insurance language was the same. The cost of living adjustments are the same as the DTD, 1.8% and 4.5% in year 2. It's a 2-year contract. There was new language for standby pay on holidays. There was new language added for bilingual skills for employees who are in a position where that's beneficial, and again, a 2-year contract. And so again, we would strongly encourage the board to ratify the overall tentative agreement for the West contract as well.
Any other, Andrew, any other comments?
Thank you, Adam. Andrew Naris, Assistant County Counsel in the Council's office. After the tentative agreements were reached with both bargaining units during mediation sessions, the Board of County Commissioners did learn for the first time that one of the material terms of the contracts, or the tentative agreements rather, were that they would be a 2-year duration rather than a 3-year duration on those contracts. And after discussions with the board, the county did re-engage with the union to try and address some of specifically the length of the contract. Those discussions weren't productive. Ultimately, the matter did proceed to the Employment Relations Board, which found that the county's efforts to re-engage with the unions on the tentative agreements was an unfair labor practice under the Public Employee Collective Bargaining Act. As a result of that order, we are presenting these tentative agreements to the board for the first time for the ratification votes. As Mr. Collier noted, the bargaining team urges ratification of both final TAs reached with AFSCME DTD and AFSCME West, and we're asking that the board hold ratification votes on both agreements. Thank you.
I'm sure commissioners will make comments. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Yes, good morning. First of all, I would like to thank all the county employees who are members of AFSCME for their service to the people of this county. The difficult negotiating environment that we have today, the looming recession, the worries that our employees and employers are having, the potential layoffs that are happening in the private sector, cause us to be a difficult time for negotiating contracts and trying to look at the future to see what's best for our employees and for the county. I believe that the 3-year contract causes additional burden on the union and on the county. This period, 2 years versus 3 years, is a small part of of a contract that I see is a very good contract for our employees. And again, I believe the 3-year contract provides a greater degree of security for both the members of AFSCME and for the county. Thank you.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation. I'm inclined to support the ratification of this contract today. I see that the cost of the conflict between the 2-year and the 3-year is just too great in the delay of having some finality. I also see there being a benefit, given the uncertain economic environment for both parties for this particular contract is when it was negotiated to have it be a 2-year instead of a 3-year contract. I'm also cognizant of the fact that we as the Board of County Commissioners have a bargaining team that we authorize to enter into these tentative agreements. And while the board expressed later concern about it being a 2-year versus a 3-year contract, honoring our collective bargaining team in those negotiations, I think, is valid and appropriate. I'm very concerned about the cost of this conflict and what it says to our employees. And in that, I think it's beneficial for this board to ratify this contract, but to be very clear moving forward that this board would like to see parity amongst this material terms and recognize that 3-year contracts going forward will be prioritized. But ratification today, I appreciate your recommendation and I'm prepared to move forward with that.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, I have some comments, but I thought first maybe I'd just ask Commissioner Fisher if she could clarify the cost. Have you monetized? When you say cost, can you explain that to me? I haven't heard that term.
The cost being the delay for our employees of not having a contract, not having raises for an extended period of time. This has gone on for months and months and months. Not having finality of a decision, I think, is detrimental to our workforce. So the cost, not necessarily being monetized in this moment, but definitely detrimental to the organization and to the employees that work for it.
Okay. So I just want to I'm going to start my comments, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just want to clarify, just to follow up, that my understanding is that wherever we settle in this open period, however we land, that any benefits that have not been conveyed as a result of not having a contract, they're retroactive. So they don't really lose, ideally, some of the agreed upon terms or the increases in pay. That's retroactive from the date of the beginning of the contract, correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay. So when is the date? When is the date that the contract opened, or the term of the contract?
So the contract would go back to July 1st of 2021. And so under the tentative agreement, the employees would get essentially a lump sum 1.8% increase retroactive to July 1st of 2021, and then July 1st, 2022, an additional lump sum in the amount of 4.5%.
Okay. So, and though that's likely, if we come to terms on that, again, that's retroactive. They don't really lose those. They're going to get those. They're going to get remunerated at that rate, right?
That's correct. And so if I'm understanding your question, you're asking if you don't ratify the contract, would they still get that? Is that what your question is?
No,
or if they
I understand
do?
we don't
Okay,
ratify it,
okay.
right? If there's not a contract, right? Right now they're not enjoying the benefits of those increases because the contract hasn't been settled.
Correct.
So that's something that we mutually have pain. We all suffer that pain right now, especially in times when inflation is really high. And I am sensitive to that. And I know that the board has been working very hard for a very long time, a strong overall message of trying to get parity in our contracts and a number of things, making sure that each bargaining unit is getting treated fairly. And so, just so that people understand how we got where we are today, the board was surprised when we found out that the deviation from a 3-year to a 2-year, or the change, was something the board had never discussed. We learned that after this tentative agreement happened. So the negotiating team technically wasn't authorized at that point, really, by the board to that. So it's just a shame that so much time between that point and today has transpired, right? It's just a lot of time and a lot of anguish. I want to thank and appreciate everyone on the negotiating teams, whether they are working on behalf of the commission or WES or DTD, or whether they're working on behalf of ASME and their membership. I don't mean my comments to be disparaging or anything else, but what I'm really struggled with over the years, in my 12th year now, is that from time to time I hear what appears to me to be communication breakdown, whether it's the board not really fully understanding what's happening at the negotiating table, or whether it's the membership not really knowing what's really happening, and feeling, and we all have responsibilities to work stronger and better. But I really think that this is one example in which I really want to look at in the future, not today, in the future, different models of how negotiations are taking place to make sure that the membership, our employees and the board are really kept apprised as best as possible, so we don't have these breakdowns. And that requires work on all our parts. But something I've heard over the years, concerns from when I bump into someone I know who is a member, that I'm not sure you're getting the full story, and then we say back, well, maybe I'm not sure you're getting the full story. So I don't know if that's the case here, but I just want to just expand on that. And we've been trying to get parity on all things, including the term, the 2-year versus 3-year. So my reservation is really, if this is looked at and we give 2 years for this this labor organization, then other organizations want 2 years as well. My concern is we'll be negotiating constantly, and if we're not negotiating constantly, those are wages and benefits that are potentially delayed or withheld, like we are today, where they're not really enjoying their COLA increases because of this uncertainty where we are today. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I have really struggled with this, and as many people know, I'm a mother of 2 union fellows, too, so I know how hard negotiations can get. I also am fully aware of how hard our public service workers, work, and how hard. I have a son that got up at 5 a.m. this morning, probably won't get home till 9 o'clock tonight. Who is a plumber and steam fitter. So I've always been very supportive. What I'm struggling with right now is this notion of parity, and that our intention had been, as we moved forward, to really have all of our public servants just put on a 3-year rotation, so we would have consistency across the board with the timing and the management of the negotiations. My biggest concern is if we ratify today, which could very well happen, I'm struggling with that, then we would have 2 units that have a 2-year and the rest at 3-year, when really our intention has just been, and it hasn't been because we don't honor our public servants who, they've been here in our audience, and they do very, very hard work. So the question for me is, will we set up an expectation that it will stay 2 years? Or can we, in the near future, again, when it comes up, then renegotiate and move it then or do it now? For me, it's largely a timing issue and a fairness issue with everyone. And there is no guarantee at this point. And I do believe that I think there was a breakdown of communication. I will certainly take responsibility for that as a commissioner. I've been here a long time. I should have realized that. So it's, mea culpa. So my question is, if we moved forward even with a 2-year, there's no guarantee there would be ratification by the union folk at this point. If we were to say, no, go back and let's look at a 3-year, there's no guarantee. But it seems to me the rest of the negotiations in this contract have been pretty much agreed to. This is the only hurdle right now, is whether it's a 2-year or a 3-year. Is that what but we still have no guarantee that that the union will even ratify what's already in here, other than the 2-year, 3-year being a bone of contention at this point.
Yeah, I would say the 2-year versus the 3-year is the biggest hurdle right now. That's not to say that either party, if either party chose not to ratify this agreement, either party could reopen make different proposals on the other terms and conditions.
So for me, it's, at this point, one piece of this. If the other terms that have been agreed to other than this, I could get there with a 2-year. However, I don't want to set up an expectation in future negotiations that we will not reopen a 3-year contract opportunity, because we do want to have parity across the board. From my perspective, I want to make that clear to our public service folks, our union folks, because our other folks have agreed to a 3-year opportunity. And I anticipate that we're still going to continue in the future. That will probably be something, at least from my perspective, we need to make sure it's fair and square for everybody. Whether we do it now or then, whether they ratify it now or then, we'll just wait and see what happens. So that's the conundrum I face, and I'm just going to have to see where it falls for me. Thank you.
I have a question. How many employees are in the WES and DTD group that are in this contract negotiation?
Do you have that information?
I actually don't have that information at the tip of my
Evelyn, do you
fingers.
have it?
I believe it's about 80 in West and about 200 in DTD.
Okay, let's say it's 300. Okay. Gary, how many employees do we have in the county overall?
Approximately 2,500.
Okay, so we've already negotiated contracts with 2,200 employees who said it is important for the Board of County Commissioners for all bargaining units to be on a 3-year rotation because of parity. So why would we make an exception for a group of 300 individuals when we've already promised 2,200 individuals that all contracts in the county would be under a 3-year rotation? Parity means equity. Parity means being equal. I think it's important that all employees are treated as equally and equitably as is possible. And that's why for about 2,200 employees, we have said a 3-year contract. And then for us to come back and break the promise of 2,200 employees, when we said we're sticking with the 3-year contract, to me, I cannot break a promise to 2,200 employees because 300 employees want something better than the other bargaining units. And quite frankly, I don't know why this group wants a 2-year over a 3-year. That has never been negotiated to management. It has never been put forth to management or the Board of County Commissioners. I will say it is incumbent upon all of us, especially the Board of County Commissioners, that the lines of communication be improved on this matter. And I do think it was a huge communication faux pas. that has led to the Labor Relations Board and their action that we come forward with a vote on this. Which, I mean, I asked so many questions on this. I asked our attorneys, why can't we do this? No, you can't. Why can't we do this? I was willing just to streamline this, offer something up today and be done with it, but I can't. And that's really too bad. I can't talk to the employees about this. That is really too bad. Every month, Gary Schmidt and I have a union president's meeting that we can't talk about this. And then you expect us to just to pull something out of the air and throw the other 2,200 employees under the bus because this bargaining group of almost 300 people want something different. I understand inflation is extremely difficult. It is for me, and it is for my family. People are getting second jobs. I don't want to see county employees get second jobs. Households are getting second jobs, but we've got to get through this. We do have a look-see at the end of every 3-year bargaining period to revisit the CPI. And that's really all we can do. Government jobs, I look at government jobs, especially at Clackamas County, as that of service. Service to the community whom support us in delivering services. And so for me, I'm going to have to stay at the 3-year. I would like to be able to offer many more things up here today, but I'm not able to do that. It's important that people understand that the word parity means equality and equity. Thank you. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah. So, in this year, 2022, we've negotiated a couple other contracts as well, and in light of, and certainly understand the difficulty for families, whether they're part of labor or they're not part of labor, part of AFSCME or not part of AFSCME, that a lot of people are struggling due to inflation and outcomes of COVID and rising rents and everything. So it is very difficult economic times. I totally understand that. I got union members in my family as well as AFSCME members in my family as well, not part of this particular organization, this local, but do have family. So I understand the economics, and what we did in the last one, I believe, to basically give an equal option was reopener language, where we could reopen the language for inflationary reasons if the inflationary came up to a certain point as a compromise between this 2-year, 3-year. So essentially it operated like a 2-year essentially for economics, but we offered that. And it was taken by the other organization, as I understand it. So I just want to say that the part that is very, very difficult for me as a member of this commission is that knowing the economics and knowing we have to make some severe budget cuts to meet the obligations of the courthouse, I'm just concerned about the number of people. So for every monetized benefit, I always, in my back of my mind, I'm wondering, well, what will that look like, and what department or service will be lost if we have to lay off a person as a result of that. So I find myself in this monetarily untenable situation. I'm not really understanding the economics of how to do that in a way that is calculated and strategic and sensitive to all the employees. So we're unknown, so it's hard to negotiate, again, really the economics at this point, not knowing how many people that will affect or how many potentially job losses there might be with different parts of the county, different bargaining units. So that's my concern, and I'll just stop my comments there, Chair.
Thank you. Any other commissioner wish to opine at this moment? Gary, what's our next steps on this?
All right, so we're going to ask you to take 2 votes. This first one will be sitting as the Board of County Commissioners for the AFSCME DTD contract. A yes vote is to ratify a 2-year contract. A no vote is to not ratify the contract. So that would be the motion. Well, I guess a motion on the table, please. Someone make a motion, a second, and then the vote.
I will entertain a motion.
I move that we ratify the 2-year contract.
Do I hear a second?
You must
For
have,
DTD.
you must have, you must vote on this, so someone needs to make a second, please.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Fisher has moved that we ratify the 2-year contract with DTD. Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Any further discussion on this? Gary, please explain the vote again.
Yes, so a yes vote is to ratify the contract for 2 years with all the other economics that was discussed. A no vote is no to the contract, period. No 2-year, no contract.
Okay, any further discussions?
Just only comment, Chair, that regardless how these votes go, if we do not ratify, I really do have confidence in our team to continue good faith negotiations, and this is not the end. I just hope that we can continue if the vote is not to approve.
Absolutely, yes.
And I agree with Commissioner Savas on this. Look, we've been forced in this situation. We wouldn't be here if, I sincerely believe it was a huge communication breakdown that we're going to try to avoid in the future. I think the contract is a good contract, except for the 2-year versus the 3-year. And again, I'm going to say all employees in the county must be treated as equitably and fairly one against the other as is humanly possible. And so, hearing no further comments, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Scholl? No. Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
No.
Chair Smith?
No, motion fails 2-3. I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners, and we will convene as the Water
Oh, yes, correct, as the water.
Environment Services Board for the next discussion. Andrew, do you have something you want to say?
No, thank you. I forgot you need to convert over to the Water and Environment Services Board. Thank you.
I think we discussed that earlier
So you're now
twice.
meeting as the Water Environment Services Board. This item is the AFSCME West labor contract. Again, to ratify the contract would be, a yes vote is to ratify the contract for 2 years. A no vote is to reject the contract. And you do have to vote, so if someone would please make a motion and a second.
I will entertain a motion.
I move that we ratify the AFSCME West contract.
2 years.
Well, it's just the contract that we were presented with.
Okay, I'll second that.
Commissioner Fisher has moved that we ratify the West AFSCME contract. Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Savas?
No.
Commissioner Schrader?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl? No. Chair Smith?
No, motion fails 2-3. Thank you very much for coming forward, gentlemen. We appreciate your time and indulgences. Gary, what's next?
Okay, you are still meeting as the Water Environment Services Board. Will do a request for consent agenda, and that is item 1, approval of an amendment modifying scope of work and increasing funding to a personal services contract with Jacobs Engineering for owner representation services of the Tri-City Outfall Project. The amendment value is $792,567. Contract value is increased to $1,255,035 for 4 years and 3 months. Funding is through Water Environment Services Operating Fund. No county general funds are involved. Ron Waringa, Assistant Director, and I apologize, I forgot your name.
Jeff Stallard, Capital Program Manager for Water Environment Services.
Sorry, Jeff. Go ahead, please.
Great, thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Ron Waringa with Wes. We're here today to talk to you about our project to install or construct a new outfall for our Tri-City facility here in Oregon City. Jeff will give the update on that. I wanted to take a minute to flag for you or highlight a conversation next week. We have a policy session scheduled with the board to present our overall capital improvement program and plan, of which this project is a key component. So we'll give a presentation and have an in-depth discussion of that plan with you next week. So we're looking forward to that. And I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you again. Jeff Stallard, Capital Program Manager with Water Environment Services. I'm here today to talk about the Tri-City Outfall Project. This project is for a large diameter, a 7.5-foot diameter pipeline from the Tri-City Treatment Plant that will convey treated effluent out to the Willamette River. This contract is an amendment to a contract with Jacobs Engineering and is for the second of anticipated 3 phases for owner's representative services for the outfall project. The outfall project, as you might recall, is being delivered as a progressive design build. So we have a contractor. You have recently approved a contract with Michaels Trenchless. They're our contractor, and this is to have Jacobs Engineering provide us kind of owner's rep services. That basically means that they're going to support us during our permitting efforts. They are going to do a small portion of the design, which is the diffuser portion of the pipeline that's out in the river. They're going to help us review the technical aspects of the design build deliverables, and they're going to help us assist in the negotiations of the final construction price, as a third-party kind of evaluator of that pricing. The initial RFP had contemplated these multiple phases, and this approach allowed us to customize our scope to fit the design builder's approach to delivering the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Commissioner Scholl.
Is this $792,000 for this phase? Is that an expected number when you started the project? Is that within the parameters of?
Yeah, the overall project value is $54 million, and this is within the anticipated expenses for what we consider engineering, administrative, and legal percentages of a project, and so it's within that range of what we expected.
Okay, thank you.
Any other further questions or comments? Any objections to this moving forward? Seeing none, thank you for coming forward.
Thank you very much.
Chair, would you now convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County?
I will recess as the Water Environment Services and convene as a Housing Authority for Clackamas County. Do we have Ann Leenstra?
Yes, Housing Commissioner Ann Leenstra is online. Ann, are you there? There you are.
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful. Good morning, Ann. Thank you for your patience. This is request for consent agenda for the Housing Authority of Clackamas County. Item 1, approval of a personal services contract with Providence Portland Medical Foundation for mobile and or site-based outreach and engagement services for residents experiencing homelessness and assignment of the contract to Clackamas County. Contract value is $180,000 for 7 months. Funding is through the Metro Supportive Housing Services Funds. No county general funds are involved. Tony Carter, Executive Director of the Housing Authority, and Rob Cook, Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead.
This is a contract that already existed with the Housing Authority and simply is being transferred over to the county to administer.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing no objections to this moving forward.
Item 2, approval of a personal services contract with the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization for mobile and or site-based outreach, engagement, and supportive housing case management services for residents experiencing homelessness, and assignment of the contract to Clackamas County. Contract value is $727,140.99 for 7 months. Funding is through the Metro Supportive Housing Services Fund. No county general funds are involved.
Again, this is an existing contract with the Housing Authority that is simply being transferred to the county for administration.
Questions or comments regarding this? Seeing no objections to this moving forward.
Item 3, approval of a personal services contract with Up and Over for mobile and or site-based outreach and engagement services, supportive housing case management, and on-call emergency services for residents experiencing homelessness, and assignment of the contract to Clackamas County. Contract value is $262,603 for 7 months. Funding through Metro Supportive Housing Services. No county general funds are involved.
Again, this is an existing contract with the Housing Authority that we are now transferring to the county to administer.
Questions or comments for the presenters on this? Do we have an additional person here that wants to talk?
You want to share something, Adam?
Yeah, sorry, I was just drawing attention to the fact that these 3 contracts are actually new agreements. I wanted to make that clear.
They're new agreements, you say?
Yeah.
Okay, very
Does
good.
that make a difference? But thank you for offering that. Does
All
that
right.
make a difference? I don't know.
It doesn't make a difference.
Okay,
But
good.
to
Thanks
know,
for the
though. Thank you.
information, Adam.
Okay, item 4, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County for on-call property maintenance of the Veteran Village property. Contract value is $50,000 for 5 years. Funding through the Metro Supportive Housing Services Fund. No county general funds are involved.
This isn't a renewal agreement. This agreement was originally entered into as the Housing Authority has experience working with the homeless population, and we were able to provide this service more cost-effectively than facilities management.
This is Metro Supported Housing Services funds. So before it was paid through general fund?
No, it was paid,
Yes, it was.
If it came from facilities, it was probably general funded, yes.
So I believe the Veterans
Yes, it
Village
was.
up until this point was paid through general fund.
yes, it was. Now it's being paid through SHS.
Yes, thank you, that's okay. Well, the point I'm making is the SHS funds are now paying for this. And is it the Metro team that's actually doing the maintenance?
No, it's the Housing Authority Maintenance Facility that is doing the maintenance.
Okay, good, thank you. Point of clarification. Any further comments on this? Seeing no objections.
Item 5, approval of an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement with Home Forward to provide resident services and supportive housing case management at Tukwila Springs, and an assignment addendum to transfer the agreement to Clackamas County. The amendment value is $590,389.89. The total agreement value is increased to $3,134,460.13. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services funds. No county general funds are involved.
This is an update from the estimated budget, which was included in the original IGA before staff was hired, with actual costs now that staff is hired, plus additional budget to cover overnight security. It was always the intent to update the budget once we had actual numbers, as this is our first permanent supportive housing project, and we need the experience to dictate more actual needs.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yeah, Mark?
When I visited Tukwila Springs last month with some of the staff, the budget for Home Forward for a 5-year period was $2.5 million and some change. One of the questions I asked there was a question about 24-hour supervision. Is this $500K addition to the $2.5 million? Is that what it's paying for?
Yes, but I want to clarify, that is not 24/7 security. The security will come in multiple times during the night, and they will also be the main point of contact for the residents. Instead of contacting our local police, they will contact the security department to resolve issues within the housing.
This is a private security company?
Correct.
Okay, so one more question on this, okay? The this management of Tukwila Springs is not an inexpensive thing. I understand that Home Forward manages some 1,100 rooms in the greater metro area. Were you able to learn from some of their existing contracts on similar projects like our Tukwila Springs? So, I mean, is this now a $3 million contract for 5 years reasonable? Is it something that's similar to what our other counties are paying for this sort of service?
Correct. Yes, it is.
Okay.
And more than anything, some of you commissioners have been involved with the city of Gladstone. This is a response. This is a quick response and a true response to a need that was presented to us, and we're adding to this contract so we can continue that relationship with Gladstone. So this is answering some pretty critical things that were put before this board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 6, approval of an amendment to the annual contributions contract with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for funding flexibility for the Moving to Work program. The amendment has no fiscal impact. The contract value remains at $19,151,246. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. No county general funds are involved.
The Housing Authority is recommending the board approve the Moving to Work amendments to continue its path to improved operational efficiencies and to promote the economic prosperity of the households we serve. Signing this amendment is only step one in a long line of operational and policy changes we will adopt over time. The Housing Authority can choose to terminate this Move to Work amendment at any time after execution. After adopting this amendment, the Housing Authority will do a supplement to its annual plan describing our first changes to operations. Thereafter, staff will work the next year to continue to identify operational efficiencies and program changes that align with our overall strategy as an agency and our development strategy going forward. This strategy includes, but is not limited to, the asset building cohort to try and sell scattered sites to families we are currently serving.
Questions or comments for the presenter? Seeing none.
All right, that's all for Housing Authority. Thank you, Housing Commissioner Leenstra and Commissioners. Chair, would you now please convene as the Development Agency?
I will recess as a Water Environment Services and convene as a Development Agency.
All right, this is request for consent agenda for the Development Agency. Item 1, approval of an amendment extending the duration and modifying terms of the ground lease to Clackamas County for the Veterans Village Transitional Housing Facility. The amendment value is 0. Lease value is 0. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair Smith. Commissioners, Health, Housing, and Human Services has leased a development agency-owned property since 2018 to site the Vets Village on. Essentially, the lease amendment and extension before you extends the amount of the lease area into other areas we're partnering with H3S on. And then 2, extends the lease to, I believe it's 2023 with a 1-year extension possible. We are in discussions with H3S about the future of that property. That's why the lease term is what it is. It gives us time to talk and vet and amend plans as needed. But I'd be happy to answer your question. And last but not least, it should be good to note the fact there's a partnering agreement on H3S's request for consent where they would sign and the chair would sign and execute it on their behalf as well. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, Mr. Johnson, on this lease, you said it extends the area. Would that be to tax lot 1200 next door?
Correct.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing no objections. Thank you,
Okay,
Dan.
thank you. Chair, would you now convene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as a Development Agency and convene as a Board of County Commissioners.
All right, these are now requests for consent agenda for the Board of County Commissioners. We'll start with elected officials. Item 1, approval of a public body work order contract with DePaul Industries for entrance screening personnel at Clackamas County Court facilities. Contract value is $687,992.64 for 7 months. Who is talking about this? Please come forward. Okay, great. Just want to make sure you're here. Funding is through budgeted county general funds. This contract is managed through, I believe, who is it the Sheriff's Office?
Yeah, I do see somebody here
Nancy
from the
Artman?
Sheriff's.
Or is it facilities? I'm not sure.
That's okay.
It's the Sheriff's Office, yes. Thank you, Nancy. Nancy Artman, Finance Manager of the Sheriff's Office.
And if you wouldn't mind, Administrator Schmidt, of rereading that, I apologize, but I was not prepared to discuss this particular one.
I am sorry, and yes, I will, and thank you for thinking quickly here. Approval
Well,
of
thank you for coming up and just lifting the heavy buckets for us.
Of course.
approval of a public body work order contract with DePaul Industries for entrance screening personnel at Clackamas County Court facilities. Contract value is $687,992.64 for 7 months. Funding is through budgeted county general funds. I'm sure this is for the county courthouse and maybe justice court, or at least the county courthouse.
I believe it's just county courthouse. And I do apologize. I was unaware this was going to be on the agenda this morning. I'm happy to get additional detail and to provide that by the end of the day today, if that suits the chair and the commissioners.
Okay, this is from Lee Eby, the jail captain.
I'm sorry, Chair. I was listening to Tony. I apologize.
What?
Did you ask a question?
Well, I'm just making note of what is in our documents.
Yes, the presentation, Chair, that I'm prepared to make today is relative to the jail for an agreement with Clackamas Community College.
That's a different one.
Correct.
Okay, I'm kind of confused on what item we're on.
I'm sorry.
Hang on a minute, we're just going to take a second.
So this is a continuation of an existing contract we've had with DePaul for years. They manage
I
the
clicked
security.
on the wrong green button. So, okay.
Not to worry.
I'm just going to take a minute and read this. I don't have a problem with moving ahead on this. If you want to shoot the board a quick email
Of
when you
course.
find the information, that's fine. Does any commissioners have any questions or objections to this moving forward?
I got a question.
Yeah, Commissioner Scholl.
The $687,000 for this 7-month contract, now, you say it comes out of the budgeted general funds, but is it also out of the sheriff budget?
So that's a good question, Commissioner, and that's something that I need to delve into. The DePaul contract was handled by county facilities, and there's a shared portion from the juvenile department and from the sheriff's office. So for courthouse security, we do have the funds that have been included into our budget. I do need to confirm with county finance their role in that piece, and I do apologize. I was unaware that this was
Nancy,
on.
just let me interject here on page 8.
Thank you, yes.
There are hours, and so it says county courthouse, juvenile court, truancy court, drug court, and justice court are all listed. Am I to assume that this contract is for all those items listed in here?
That's correct. It's one contract for all of those.
Okay, so does that help, Commissioner Scholl?
Yeah, it does, thank you.
Let me scroll through here. Gary or Tony, have any other additional information on this?
No, again, it's an existing contract with DePaul. We've used DePaul for years. This is just
Right.
extending the contract. It's primarily general funded, but it's been budgeted. You budget for this.
It's been budgeted, of
Yes,
course.
yes.
Yeah, any objections to this moving forward? No. Seeing none, Nancy, thank you very much for coming forward.
She has
My-
one more.
my
Item 2,
pleasure.
approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas Community College to provide general education development instruction at the Clackamas County Jail. Contract value is $98,487 for 3 fiscal years. Funding is through the Sheriff's Office Inmate Welfare Fund account. No county general funds are involved.
Good morning again. I am very pleased to discuss with you this one for which I'm prepared to speak. So this is an ongoing agreement we have with Clackamas Community College to provide educational services for adults in custody. It provides them the opportunity to work toward a GED. And we have a set amount, as you can see, per year, not to exceed amount. We do receive a very detailed invoice from Clackamas Community College at the end of each term. And these are funds that are designated from the Inmate Welfare Fund. There is not general fund involved, as was mentioned by Administrator Schmidt.
Okay. Questions, comments? Seeing no objections to this moving forward.
All right,
Thank
thank
you
you,
very
Nancy,
much.
very much. Thank you for being flexible today.
Of course.
Next, Juvenile Department. Item 1, approval to accept the Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant Program local solicitation for fiscal year 2022. Grant value is $52,400. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Justice. No county general funds are involved. Christina McMahon, Juvenile Director, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. Christina McMahon, Juvenile Department Director. Just here seeking approval to accept this federal formula grant that we have access to getting in Clackamas County. As you can see from my staff report, we plan to use it to help fund our community restorative justice community work service program so that young people can give back to the community and be accountable for their delinquent acts out in the community. So we are just seeking your approval to accept it.
Questions, comments? Seeing no objections.
Thank you. Next, Disaster Management. Item 1, approval to apply for a 2022 Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant, or BRIC grant, from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and amendment of the cooperation agreement with Portland General Electric for the Mount Hood Corridor Resiliency Project. The grant value is $50 million with $12.5 million match. The funding is through the Federal Emergency Management Agency with matching funds provided by Portland General Electric. There are no county general funds, or no county funding at all for that matter, involved. We've applied for this previously, as you may recall, Commissioners. We have Daniel Nybauer and Jay Wilson from Disaster Management. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. I'm Daniel Nybauer, Interim Director, Disaster Management. This is a reapplication of the Building Resilient Infrastructure for Communities grant, or BRIC grant from FEMA. The project is a partnership between PGE and Clackamas County to underground power lines and rebuild reinforced substations from Dunn's Corner to Welch's, including up to the Bull Run watershed and headworks. This project will help protect the infrastructure from wildfire and eliminate the potential of an overhead line causing an ignition. It will also allow PGE to keep the substations energized in the event of a public safety power shutoff. The stage that is in this particular application will address the undergrounding of lines from Dunn's Corner to the Bull Run hydroelectric plant and headworks. The application is for the maximum available under the grant of $50 million. There is a $12.5 million cost match that PGE will match, and as the project is estimated at $80 million, they'll provide the also additional $18 million above that, so it won't cost the county, won't have to do the count much. PGE is effectively overmatching, which FEMA looks at favorably. Last year's application was not selected during the competitive process. However, both FEMA and the State Department of Emergency Management saw the validity of this project and encouraged the county and PGE to reapply. This year's application has been revised to address comments by FEMA on last year's application, including a reassessment of the benefit cost analysis. We are also intending, if given approval, to send this application early to the State Department of Emergency Management for their critical review before the January deadline that FEMA has.
You said a lot. I'm very happy that we are reapplying, and you think that the reasons for denial from last year are addressed in this new application.
I do, and I like the way Jay puts it. We weren't denied, we just weren't selected. It was a competitive process, so they can only fund the amount that they had possible.
Did you say you redid the economics involved in this?
The benefit cost analysis.
Oh, the benefit cost analysis, which I would think would be very high.
Oddly, that was one of the criticisms that FEMA had, that it was too high, and they didn't believe it. So PGE went back through and reassessed and provided additional details. It did lower the benefit cost analysis some, but what we view as a more realistic analysis that FEMA will hopefully look at more favorably.
Any other changes in this application off the top of your head, Jay?
Good morning, Chair Smith. Other commissioners, no, the basic sub-application is the same as last year. We've just made some improvements based on FEMA recommendations. I think we do have a much more competitive grant this year, and the funding cycle for this year actually has been doubled for the federal grant. So I think we have an even better shot of getting this one.
And the reason why government is doing it for PGE, which would seem like private sector, because only government can apply. PGE cannot apply on their own, but we feel that it's important enough that we have electricity in our county to make sure that power lines are buried and not subject to wildfire, ice storms, windstorms, or anything else. That's why we're doing this, just that clarification. Any other comments to this? Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, Tourism Department. Item 1, approval of a board order authorizing a lease with the Hoodland Senior Center for county-owned property located at 65000 East Highway 26, Welch's, Oregon. Lease value is $24 for 2 years. Lease payments will be funded by the Hoodland Senior Center. No county general funds are involved. Samara Phelps, Tourism Executive Director. Go ahead.
Good morning. Samara Phelps, Executive Director of Tourism. And this lease is a 10-year lease for the Hoodland Senior Center to operate out of a building in Welch's that is owned by the county through the Tourism Fund. The prior lease has expired, so this is a new lease to extend the services that have been ongoing. So it is a new lease, but it continues operations. And as was mentioned, there is no general funds used. This is the Hoodland Senior Center compensating us for, very mildly, for the lease.
Any questions or comments? Seeing no objections to this moving forward, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of a Health Resources and Services Administration co-applicant agreement with the Health Centers Division Community Health Council. No fiscal impact, no county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Health, Housing, Human Services Director, go ahead.
Yes, the purpose of this agreement, of this co-applicant agreement, is to provide for the operation, administration, and provision of federally qualified health center services in Clackamas County. This agreement delegates the required authorities and functions to the co-applicant board. It delineates the roles and responsibilities of the public agency and the co-applicant in carrying out the health center program.
Questions or comments? Seeing none.
Item 2, approval of an assignment addendum from the Housing Authority of a personal services contract with Providence Portland Medical Foundation for mobile and/or site-based research and engagement services. The addendum has no fiscal impact. Contract value remains at $180,000 for 7 months. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services Fund. No county general funds are involved.
So this is the first of the 3 that you heard from HAC. The assignment piece of this is the part we're dealing with. This is where they're giving the contract to us to administer from this day forward. So that's what this is doing.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 3, approval of an assignment addendum from the Housing Authority of a personal services contract with the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization for mobile and/or site-based outreach, engagement, and supportive housing case management services. The addendum has no fiscal impact. Contract value remains at $727,140.99 for 7 months. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services Funds. No county general funds are involved.
Same situation with this contract.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 4, approval of an assignment addendum from the Housing Authority of Clackamas County of a personal services contract with Up and Over for mobile and/or site-based outreach and engagement services and on-call emergency services. The addendum has no fiscal impact. Contract value remains at $262,603 for 7 months. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services Funds. No county general funds are involved.
Same with this assignment to H3S.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 5, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Housing Authority of Clackamas County for on-call property maintenance of the Veterans Village property. The agreement value is $50,000 for 5 years. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services Funds. No county general funds are involved.
This was talked about earlier with the HAC, but basically just to say Clackamas County Board of County Commissioners sponsors the Veterans Village project to provide transitional housing and services for homeless veterans in Clackamas County. And this makes sure that we take care of the upkeep on that.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 8, approval of an assignment addendum from the Housing Authority for an intergovernmental agreement with Home Forward for resident services and case management at Tukwila Springs. The addendum has no fiscal impact. The contract value remains at $3,134,460.13 for 5 years. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services Funds. No county general funds are involved.
This moves the money or the contract to H3S.
Thank you, Rod. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 7, approval of an amendment increasing funding and extending the duration of a contract with, I apologize, I'm going to say this incorrectly, El Programa Hispano Cataloco, providing supportive housing case management and housing navigation placement services. The amendment value is $2,205,005.97 for 1 year and 7 months. The total contract value is increased to $2,667,922.97 for 2 years and 7 months. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services Funds. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this amendment extends the contract for 20 months and adds funds allowing an additional housing navigator, case manager, and program manager dedicated to Clackamas County. The amendment will significantly increase the capacity and extend the provision of housing navigation placement to at least 90 households and supportive housing case management services to at least 75 households each fiscal year.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 8, approval of an amendment increasing funding and extending the duration of a contract with Greater New Hope Family Services, providing supportive housing case management and housing navigation placement services for the Housing and Community Development Division of Health, Housing, and Human Services. The amendment value is $1,184,051.35 for 1 year and 7 months. Total contract value is $1,750,151.35 for 2 years and 8 months. Funding through the Metro Supportive Housing Services Funds. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this amendment will allow the continuation and expansion of services provided housing navigation and placement for at least 60 households and supportive housing case management services for at least 45 households each fiscal year.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 9, approval of an amendment extending the duration and modifying terms of the ground lease from the Clackamas County Development Agency for the Veterans Village Transitional Housing Facility. The amendment value is 0, lease value is 0. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, Dan was before you on the DTD side of this. This is our side. So H3S has leased the developmental agency-owned property since 2018 for use as a pilot transitional shelter community program known as the Veterans Village. We request to amend these existing lease to include additional property adjacent to the existing facility to expand its services.
Any objections to this moving forward? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Rod. That is the consent agenda list. All of these items will be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda. All right, I believe we can finish the rest of this list in 25 minutes, so we'll keep moving forward. Next, we have your commissioners, your Performance Clackamas update on the implementation team for the Sunrise Gateway Corridor. We have 2 updates today. These are the final 2 of your 10 Performance Clackamas priorities. We wanted to, by the end of this calendar year, I wanted to finish quick updates on each of them for you. These are the last 2. First one today is the Sunrise Gateway Corridor. Dan Johnson and Jamie Stasny from Transportation and Development. Go ahead.
Chair Smith, Commissioners, in the interest of time, I'm just going to turn it over to Jamie to give you an update.
Welcome, Jamie.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. Good to see you all back in front of you again to give you an update on behalf of the implementation team for the Sunrise Corridor project. This is related specifically to your goal around the Sunrise Corridor, which is funding for the first phase, or the next phase of the Sunrise Gateway Multimodal Corridor improvements will be committed from federal, state, regional, and local funding sources by 2024. Since last I was in front of you, the group's been hard at work, mostly focused on the Sunrise Visioning Project, which you're well aware of. We were awarded $4 million from the state legislature to move forward with this visioning project. Since we are in front of you, we finalized the IGA, received the funds, and have been working diligently, convening an internal working group with staff from many different departments. This project is coordinated across many departments and has a lot of external partners as well. So I've been learning all about the challenges of coordination and coming to consensus on a really complicated and I would say innovative RFP that we've been developing for this project. This project's complicated. We want to accomplish a lot of different outcomes. And so it's been a learning process to develop the RFP. The RFP is done. We put it out. It closed on November 16th. We have 4 proposers, really great proposers. We'll be meeting in the next week and a half to select the consultant team for this project and hope to have the negotiations done by January, and we'll be kicking off work in the new year. And the project, we're looking at, you've heard a lot about this already. I know we're short on time, so I won't go through it. But there will be existing conditions work happening early on. The community engagement piece, which I know you're all very interested in and we're all really excited about, will probably kick off late spring, early summer. So we are working really hard to get it going. It is new, is different, it is big, and we're really excited to get it moving. So thank you for your time. Happy to answer questions.
I want to do a quick shout out. If you've never done an RFP, was this your first RFP, Jamie?
It was.
Yes, it was. You love to cut your teeth on a $4 million request for proposals that's technical of this nature. I want to thank Jamie for her great work, our team of internal partners and external partners that helped us work through this. Mike Besner was instrumental in reviewing the RFP as well. So thank you so much. Happy to answer any questions.
And in the documents, Commissioners, there's activities planned for each quarter. We also have what's working well, barriers and challenges, that I'm sure staff will address and keep us apprised of activities completed to date on that too. Any other? Commissioner Scholl.
This looks at 122nd to 172nd, but I got to ask you the question. In this study that'll happen, will there be any looking out ahead past 172nd? Is there going to be any kind of dialogue on what happens after 172nd for the Sunrise Corridor? And the reason I ask you this question, Jamie and Dan, this morning I left my home, it was icy conditions, and I got, right on 212, a mile from my house.
That's ODOT's, making sure we're clear about that.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, by the time I got within about a mile and a half of Damascus, I'm in a traffic jam. Okay, so constituents from the east end of the county are always saying, hey, Mark, they're talking about this piece up to 172nd, but what about the rest of us have to get from Highway 26 at Sandy or come out of Gresham to get through to Damascus, Clackamas, and I-205? What do I tell them? I don't need you to answer all
of it.
how's and whys and wherefores on it, but is there any glimmer of looking past 172nd?
Let me start with the first question. The board's performance Clackamas objective was very clear to 172nd, so this work is going to focus on that corridor area from 122nd to that 172nd. Having said that, there are lessons learned that'll probably be transcending beyond that'll be pulled from this that will extend into those areas. The specific issue you are discussing, though, is along essentially that Foster Road intersection with Highway 212 in that area of Boring. And let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
I in the back of my mind, I'm recalling some discussions around some improvements in there, but again, that intersection specifically is under the jurisdiction of ODOT, and I'd have to research it and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I just appreciate all the work that's being done. I'm anxious to see this thing take off and get going and select a team to move this forward. Had a chance to talk with one of our mayors of one of our cities impacted by this, and very anxious but also concerned that some of our, whether it's the state or the governor's climate action plan or other action plans is cited in here. There's some people have the belief or concern that the environment may not be very open to building any new roads or expanding any new roads. So that's really an issue that we need to keep an eye on all levels, whether it's the current lawsuit by some other jurisdictions, not Clackamas County, or whether it is other aspects, whether it's the Metro, willingness to support this project. I hope that they are willing to support this project.
Great.
That's just commentary.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Any further comments on this? Thank you for all the good work, and we look forward to implementation. Thank you.
All right, next is also your Performance Clackamas goal. This one on a business-friendly environment. This implementation team will also be Dan Johnson, joined by Cindy Moore from Economic Development. Go ahead, please.
I have the pleasure of being joined by Cindy Moore from our...
Well, good morning.
Well, good morning. Cindy's going to give a brief update on this implementation team results. She's been doing a lot of great work with our internal stakeholders, and we're here to share that information with you.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt, Cindy Moore with the Office of Economic Development. It is my pleasure today to give the board an update on your goal of a business-friendly environment. For the general public, and as a reminder to those in the audience, by 2024, 75% of businesses working in Clackamas County report a business-friendly environment that supports stability and growth. That is the goal as determined by the board. Our implementation team developed a definition to go with this goal, and it states, a business-friendly environment supports the business community in several ways. 2 water types, service and waste, transportation, affordability of development, the regulatory environment, which cities do have a major influence over, efficient and timely permitting processing, housing, and a trained and capable workforce. And this also includes our ability to expedite requests accordingly. There's a lot of work that we do at the county when we interface with the business community. It was a tough task to come up with that definition, but we think we were all inclusive there. To give you an idea of the members of the implementation team, we have multiple departments: Department of Transportation and Development, which includes the former Business and Community Services Department, County Administration, Assessment and Taxation, Technology Services, and Water and Environment Services. So for today's purposes, I just want to hit on some of the key activities that the implementation team has been working on. Part of what we wanted to do is establish what is the county currently doing, in our opinion, that is business friendly. And so that's what I wanted to share with you today, a few of the highlights that we've determined across county departments, and then I'll close with our action item. The formation and support of business recovery centers in partnership with the local chambers of commerce in response to COVID-19 over the past few years. That was huge. Establishment of online permitting system through DTD. We know that other departments are exploring this opportunity as well for efficiency purposes. Assessment and Taxation Department implemented an online process for businesses in Clackamas County to file their personal property tax returns online. Very few counties have this option, saving time and resources. The Clackamas Broadband Exchange, or CBX, in partnership with local ISPs, received an ARPA grant to install, to install fiber to underserved areas in the county. Phase 1 has started with the goal of reaching over 630 homes. Phase 2 is under evaluation. This could also support home-based businesses in our rural communities. DTD is also using the Happy or Not feedback mechanism, and will be expanding that offering to use in other divisions, so an immediate feedback opportunity for our business customers. And then finally, Clackamas County is temporarily waiving property tax interest charges on unpaid or late 20 or 2021 tax payments for qualifying businesses. So those are some of the key activities we felt we wanted to highlight today in our report to you. And then, as I mentioned, I'll close. Our current action item is to deploy a business-friendly environment survey. And we have partnered with the Small Business Development Center Network through the Southern Oregon University Market Research Institute, who manages all of their deployment of analysis and data and surveys. And we are proud to be partnering with them with the support of Water and Environmental Services, monetary contribution of $5,000 as well. That survey will be online. It will be also in a QR code form. And we hope to be able to share that with the commissioners as part of your business meeting and announcements. That will be coming to you in early February. So in the interest of time, I'll pause there and see if you have any questions.
Questions or comments? Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, thanks, Cindy, and thanks, Dan, for all the work you do in this, because it's a particular interest. And I have been asked, I'm wondering if you can put together a quick white paper about our story of how we used ARPA dollars for the business recovery centers. We've been asked at the national level to present what we have done with our ARPA dollars, particularly for our small businesses. It will be mentioned in the National Association of Counties newsletters, and they also want us to do a quick film talking about what we've done and how we've done it. And that will happen, I hope, as I go to the next conference in Chicago, but they have specifically asked that from this county, and they're asking it from counties across the nation. But I think what we did was particularly useful, particularly helpful to our businesses. And I'd really like to know about the survey a little more, because is it going to be voluntary? Are you going to be calling people to encourage them to fill this out, or how's that going to work? Because I'm curious as to what the response is going to be and how quickly we'll get that information in.
Great question.
So,
go ahead. Great question. First of all, congratulations on the recognition for the work and the Business Recovery Centers. We'd be happy to put a one-pager together for you on that. The survey itself, yes, all hands on deck. We are trying our very best to deliver this through all the mechanisms that we have available at the county and through our partners. We've got a really great network of city economic development practitioners, our local chambers of commerce, our business recovery centers, our industry associations. We're really going to try and hit it hard to get the word out and get the responses back.
Okay, anything I can do to help with that, I'd be
Thank
really,
you.
really honored to do so, because it's a particular interest of mine. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we have limited video experience, so we coordinated with PGA on that.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, no, they're going to do it at NACO. What I'm trying to tell you is they want us to get in there, and they have a time for us to show up to talk about what we've done with our ARPA dollars. It'll go national. And that's what I'm hoping, that if I had, made sure I had the specific information that was correct, so I can be articulate enough to talk about what we've done here. That's what I'd really, yeah. So, but that is, it's actually scheduled. I just looked at the schedule, and I'd like to participate in that, because I think this was a big deal.
Is there a deadline for that? When is that?
It's just coming up next, the next few days, really.
Okay.
I just need the information at ASAP, if you could. I mean, I don't know, I think it's just going to be like a one-pager. You don't have to, but
We'll
it would
handle
be
that
nice.
offline, Commissioner. Commissioner will do that offline. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we're running out of time.
Okay, sorry. All right.
Yeah, so
Well,
we have
that's
two
what I
other
thought.
commissioners in the queue, Commissioner Shaw and then Commissioner Savas.
Okay, I just, a comment on your friendly business environment survey. I would hope that it includes questions about how taxes affect Clackamas County's attractiveness to business, how the availability or availability of industrial lands affects our attractiveness to business, how our education in Clackamas County is preparing our young students for good employment or not, and also what business thinks of the cost of rental apartments and the cost of housing, and how that affects our county's attractiveness to business. Thank you.
Good questions, Commissioner Schull. I agree with all those. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, I appreciate all the good work that's underway. When I review the charts below, related metrics, for example, it looks to me like we'll be looking forward to revisiting during our retreat next year, just around the corner, maybe some of these metrics, because I'm sure that issues like our ability or likelihood to maybe build some of these projects, and also tolling, how that will impact businesses and so forth. And and to Commissioner Schull's point about the cost of housing, certainly we know that businesses need employees. They need to be able to have a roof over their head that they can afford. So, I do hear that people that want to expand or bring in employees and expand their employee base are challenged by the cost of rents and so forth, and transportation. So I think we need to do some updating on the related metrics a little bit. Some of them we're doing well on, and some I'm kind of wondering about. But all to say that there's a real concern out there what the future looks like for business growth. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Thank you for the work on this. We look forward to another discussion in this in January as we go through our goal setting.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you've got an update on all 10 of your priorities over the calendar year, and yes, in early February, you'll be reviewing these and see what you want to continue and what you want to change. So we'll do that in early February. Thank you. In the interest of time, let's jump ahead to the ABC appointments. Tony, go ahead, please.
The Board of Property Tax Appeals, staffed by the Clackamas County Clerk's Office, interviewed for member openings due to annual term expirations. Board members are recruited as volunteers. At least 3 board members are required by statute. Through a recruitment process, 4 applications were received. 4 applicants are being recommended for selection. Those recommendations are Vicki Pounds, William Spencer, Daryl McCarthy, and Richard Deach to renewal terms.
I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the appointments.
Seconded.
Commissioner Schrader has moved for appointments to the Board of Property Tax Appeals of Vicki Pounds, William Spencer, Daryl McCarthy, and Richard Deach, and Commissioner Schull has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please call the poll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Schull?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
All right, next, a draft letter to Governor-elect Tina Kotek. There's a draft in your packet, and Chair Smith, would you like to lead?
Yes, it has occurred to me since we have a new governor coming on and being sworn in next month, I would like to be able to reach out with her and have a discussion on some of the issues that are affecting Clackamas County. This letter was written at a very high level, just bringing attention to the issues and get a dialogue going. It's not intended to be very specific in the details. I don't think it's necessary for this initial letter, but I want to reach out to her and educate her on Clackamas County and just explain to her what help we need, what we're doing well, and start a dialogue. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think the letter's a good idea. I like the tone. I just made a couple edits, and I think there was a copy on the dais for everyone to take a look at. Just highlight, just really briefly here, that the issue about the safety as a result of diversion on the 205 tolling is a prime one, as well as the revenue generation aspect and the unfairness. Also, we do have a number of cities in urban Clackamas County, some of which are affluent and some of which are really almost the opposite. So I thought it was important to just kind of really not talk about the economics, but just highlight the fact that we have a number of urban cities. So if everyone's okay, I'm
We have
happy to.
other people in the queue.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. I appreciate your edits. And you can see those in red under PS, proposed revisions to the draft letter. I'm not sure who's up next. Who wants to go first, Fisher or Scholl?
I'll be happy to. I'll be happy
whoever wants to go.
Chair Smith, I support the letter, but I urge you, when you speak to the governor-elect, to pass on our concerns about the bullet regarding I-205 tolling program and its effects on diversion and public safety. My opinion, this tolling is going to be a tax on our families and our businesses that are currently very stressed, and I would like you to put the thought in the governor-elect's ear that it's time to trim the cost of government and not to trim the family and business finances through tolling.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Scholl, I appreciate your comments. Commissioner Fisher, you're up.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight on the second bullet, expanding behavioral health resources. That bullet is putting two very different concepts together in one bullet, and I would suggest creating two different bullets. The expanding behavioral health resources, I would suggest saying expanded behavioral health sources while mitigating liability on the county when engaged in joint state-county contracts. That's a really important legislative effort that this legislature needs to address. The other issue about chronic addictions is different. When we're dealing with behavioral health resources, that's addressing the Mossman decision, the aid and assist, not having people being able to stay at the Oregon State Hospital, which means that they're being released, which means they're coming to the counties, which means the counties need to not be liable for that. Putting in the chronic addictions, that's also an important issue, but I would suggest having that be a separate bullet. These are two very distinct.
And I'm not sure where you want the separate bullet to
I mean, it could
start.
just go under it. It could be expanding behavioral health resources while mitigating liability on the county when engaged in joint county contracts. And then another bullet of expanding addiction and resources to address.
We will wordsmith that later if it's acceptable to Commissioners. Gary?
Yes, we'll fix that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, and then my only other thought, and I like what Commissioner Savas added about life-threatening safety risks, but the unfairly targeted, we're unfairly targeted because Clackamas County is being proposed to be told before the rest of the region. And I don't know if
And we're not going to put all those details in this letter because it's specifically designed to be high level. So when I sit down with the governor, I am hoping I have the opportunity. I can bring that forward to her and explain that. I don't want the letter to be so inclusive, there's, oh, I get it, and she moves on and doesn't give us a call. Thank you for that, though. Yes, I will bring that forward.
Okay, because I don't know the numbers. Paul Savas is better with the numbers, but 1 year ahead of the region being told is what I'm hearing is what the toll plan would be. I don't know what the revenue generation would be with that, but it is a fairness issue for Clackamas County.
Of course it is. It definitely is a fairness issue. So,
But my only comment, Chair, on that is that I agree just to keep it maybe as is and keep it high level. So I agree with your comments. I'm also agree with Commissioner Fisher's concerns, but it's more complicated than that because when there's no options for other people, regardless when the start date is, regardless whether or not we start ahead of the reason, it's both. That's why it's complex.
yeah, it is complex, and Commissioners, I am just bringing this letter forward to you. I can send it, the letter on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, or I can just send it on my own, but I wanted to bring it forward. Yes, we have discussed all of these issues a lot, and I am aware, but we just really need a general letter that explains the difficulties we're having with government or state policy.
Chair, I move we approve the letter with the amendments discussed and agreed upon here today and request for impact that we all sign it.
Seconded.
Okay.
request MPAC?
No, I request that we all sign it.
You said something about MPAC. I didn't understand that,
I
sorry.
didn't mean impact.
Okay. Yes, that's fine. We can all sign this letter.
I'm sorry, maybe I did say it, for impact.
For impact.
I did say that.
That's what I heard,
Gotcha.
impact.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, gotcha.
That's fine.
Thank you for
Okay.
that. That's
Is that all right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, commissioners, for this. What's next?
We are out of time, but last item is Commissioner Communications, if you'd like to do that.
I will forego my comments today, commissioners. Who would like to speak? Commissioner Scholl?
I'll be quick. Just a heads up, I got an invitation to the Hoodland CPO meeting on 11 January to discuss short-term rentals. What a joy that's going to be.
Okay.
Then next Tuesday is the Timber Sale Advisory Meeting, which I'll be at. And then Thursday this week, after the business meeting, I will depart to go to Roseburg for the Association of Oregon and California County Annual Board Meeting. And I'll be back here Friday at 3 p.m.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Scholl. Any other commissioners, which,
I'll forego my comments for today.
yeah, I will forego mine until the Thursday business meeting, Commissioner Fisher as well. Thank you, commissioners. See no further business before us today. We are adjourned.